Okay, so it says, so says the Most High of Hosts, the power of Israel, add your burnt offerings upon your sacrifices and eat flesh. Okay, so when you're going in here, but I'm gonna show that the norm was to eat flesh. So out of nowhere, this guy's trying to twist it, and you know, and that's what I'm saying. Is just like, which I did not command your fathers to eat, but like I said, just by that what I've just shown, that the Most High, they could have been sacrificing unclean meats. This has nothing to do with a vegan doctrine. Okay, so that's what I'm saying. But it says, for neither did I speak with you with your forefathers, nor did I command them on the day I brought them out of the land of Egypt concerning a burnt offering or a sacrifice. Okay, so it's, yeah, you know what I'm saying. So add your burnt offerings upon your sacrifice. So it's like saying, the Most High saying, yeah. So if you're already starting to sacrifice to other gods, okay, add this to it. Okay, so yeah, have that that, you know what I'm saying, because he never commanded us to sacrifice, you know, to other gods. Okay, and then again, it's like going back to, you have to show and prove. So all this time, yeah, it's all these sacrifice all throughout the Old Testament, and you know, apocrypha in between, and then this whole time we wasn't really supposed to be sacrificing. And then matter of fact, let me cut that real quick, because even in the kingdom, it said Ezekiel, I believe it's Ezekiel 46. Okay, so yeah, Ezekiel 46 and 4. And the burnt offering that the prince shall offer unto the Most High in the Sabbath day shall be 6 lambs without blemish, and a ram without blemish. And the meat offering shall be an ephod for a ram, and the meat offering for the lambs, as he shall be able to give an hin of oil to the if. Salakia, if I'm saying that wrong.
Strong's 374. Apha.
So again, we're reading in Ezekiel that which whether those believe that that's something that already happened, which I believe that's in the future. But regardless, what does it say? It says that it's sacrifice. And who, thus saith the Most, you read verse 1, thus saith the Most High. So who's saying this? Who's saying that they're going to offer meats, offerings, and burnt offerings? Okay? So, I mean, that's a cut right there. Alright, so, now let's go into some other translations. So this is the New Living Translation, and it says, I'm just going to read the point. Take your burnt offerings and your other sacrifices and eat yourselves. Eat them yourselves. Okay, so it's the Most High is mad at what we're doing. This is not really saying, he said, when I led your ancestors out of Egypt, it was not burnt offerings and sacrifices I wanted from them. Okay, so yeah, we can understand, which I'm going to show before somebody gets simple and be like, but we just read that the Most High still allowed the sacrifices. Okay, so that's not what but he did, this is what he wanted us to obey him, because matter of fact, I'm gonna deal with those scriptures, but just getting that, let's see, just wanted to get a few different translations. Eat flesh. So a lot more than the King James says eat flesh. So out of all these translations, which obviously I don't follow them, but it's like you're gonna go and get the Lamsa and then, like I said, make a whole new doctrine. But everything there, a lot, or the census and the so-called biblical world in regards to translations is stuff has to match with other translations, and you know what I'm saying, and then you come to like one agreement. You know what I'm saying, when you study how they I guess the criticism on text, so eat the meat yourselves. And I don't want this lesson to be too long, because I just wanted to read a few scriptures into for those, because I already showed that we're about sacrifice and how it could. For this scripture, eat meat that I commanded them not to eat, is not a vegan doctrine, but whether you're trying to say that we weren't supposed to eat during the sacrifice, fine, that's cool. But it also can represent not eating unclean foods, as I showed in Maccabees and Hosea. Okay, so I'm gonna just close this out. And I already showed, Lamsa, and the same stuff that's being said in the King James is in the Lamsa. Matter of fact, let me bring out that one thing though before I go into these other scriptures, and I'm gonna just close it out. Okay, so verse 6. So Abraham, this is Genesis verse 18, or chapter 18, verse 6. So Abraham hasted into the tent to Sarah and said, "Make ready quickly 3 measures of fine flour kneaded, and make cakes on a griddle." And Abraham ran to the herd and took a calf, fat and good, and gave it to a servant, and he hastened to prepare it, and took butter and milk and the calf which he had prepared, and set them before them, and he stood by them under the tree, and they ate. Okay, so we see this. Alright, so y'all gotta stop playing games. So a calf, Abraham ate a calf. Alright, so wanted to get this, because this is called the Hebraic Roots Version Scriptures. It's revised edition. It says an original translation made directly from ancient Hebrew and Aramaic sources. So similar to the Lamsa. Okay, so but we go right down to Jeremiah. Go right down to Jeremiah and see what it says. So Jeremiah 7:21. It says, "Thus saith Yahweh, the power of Israel, add your burnt offerings unto your sacrifice, and eat you flesh. For I spoke not unto your fathers, nor commanded them in the day that I brought them out of the land of Egypt concerning burnt offerings or sacrifices." Okay, so again, it's saying eat flesh. So how I interpret it, or what I believe that's what it's saying, because obviously it's not talking about a vegan doctrine, but the Most High is basically saying, because you're burning us, doing sacrifices to other gods, why don't you add burnt offerings to it? That's what he's saying. He's saying you're needing cakes to the. In fact, go back to that, to the Queen of Heaven. While you're doing that, add burnt offerings and eat flesh. So it has nothing to do with a vegan doctrine. Okay, so it says that they made cakes. Yeah, make cakes to the Queen of Heaven and pour out drink offerings to other gods. Then you drop down, so they're already doing that. Then put your burnt offerings into your sacrifices. Which sacrifices? The sacrifices to the other gods, and eat flesh for that. Okay, so that's what it's talking about, man. So let me go into, so also those that teach, or the person that I saw, he was saying that we never were supposed to sacrifice or whatever, which, there's scriptures on that, which the Most High, which I'm gonna just show and prove. So this out first. Alright, so this is first Maccabees 59. 59. Now the 5 and 20th day of the month, they did sacrifice upon the idol altar, which was upon the idol of the Most High, at which time, according to the commandment, they put to death certain women that had caused their children to be circumcised, and they hanged the infants about their necks, and rifled their houses, and slew them that they had circumcised them. Howbeit many in Israel were fully resolved and confirmed in themselves not to eat any unclean thing. Okay, wherefore the rather to die that they might not be defiled with meats, and that they might not profane the holy covenant. So then they died. Okay, so, and then somebody might twist this without understanding. So they thinking you're going to be defiled with meats. Okay, so let's show what that is really talking about. Because we read that they were supposed to sacrifice. We already read that they were supposed to sacrifice swine flesh. Verse 47, set up altars and groves and chapels of idols, and sacrifice swine's flesh and unclean beasts. Okay, so unclean beasts. So not only swine's flesh, but anything in Leviticus 11 that's unclean. Okay, so likewise, this is what Paul was talking about in 1 Corinthians, the 10th chapter, when you read, which here it is. Alright, so okay, I will start. Okay, so verse 26. Alright, verse 25. So whatsoever is sold in the shambles, that eat, asking no questions for conscience sake. For earth is the Most High's, and the fullness thereof. If any of them that believe not bid you to a feast, and ye be disposed to go, whatsoever is set before you, eat, asking no questions for conscience sake. But if any man say unto you, this is offered in sacrifice unto idols, eat not for his sake that showed it, and for conscience sake, for the earth is the Most High's, and the fullness thereof. So, just like, because the Maccabees was during the time of the Greeks, and then Paul, this is during the time of the Romans, so that same kind of mentality was going on. So Paul's saying, just because it was sacrificed to an idol is nothing. Everything is, so if they say, oh, okay, this chicken or anything that's lawful was sacrificed to Baal, is nothing. Like, for instance, even today, if you think any meat that you're eating that, let's say, any type of food, rather. Let's say you go to Subway or something like that, and you don't know that they didn't. Yeah, they the meat and all of that it was sacrificed to idols, and then you go and you buy it, but it's clean. You know that you're not doing anything wrong because you're not serving the God. So that's why Paul is talking about here. Okay, so he says, conscience, I say, not thine own, but of the other. For why is my liberty judged of another man's conscience? Okay, so that's what Paul was speaking of in that. But just going back to the other, that right here, showing that howbeit many in Israel were fully resolved and confirmed in themselves not to eat any unclean thing. But the key word is unclean thing. So they were, again, unclean beasts and swine's flesh. Because even when you read further into the Maccabees, they were forcing us to eat swine's flesh. So unclean foods is what the deal was, not just eating meat in general. Unclean, or eating clean meats, rather. All right. So this is Amos 5. All right. So in this scripture and another one, okay, this is Amos 5:21. It says, I despise your feast days, and I will not smell in your solemn assemblies. And a lot of people don't have no understanding, thinking that the Most High doesn't want us to keep the feast days anymore. But again, Colossians, the 2nd chapter, it's a shadow of things to come, so we still keep them. Though ye offer me burnt offerings and your meat offerings, I will not accept them, neither will I regard the peace offerings of your fat beasts. So again, we were sacrificing. Take thou away from me the noise of thy songs, for I will not hear the melody of thy vows, but let judgment run down as waters and righteousness as a mighty stream. Okay, so now, and this is, I mean, the topic, and this is a cut. It says, have ye offered unto me sacrifices and offerings in the wilderness 40 years, O house of Israel? So the Most High is not sweating our sacrifices, but he's more so, again, like, obey him. Let judgment run down as waters and righteousness as a mighty stream. But even the Most High is saying someone will be stuck on the burnt offering aspect, but the Most High says he doesn't want to hear our songs. Okay, because again, what our people was doing was, they would know they were going to sin and then have the sacrifices ready. So that's the whole thing. The Most High wasn't dealing with that. Alright, but it says, but ye have borne the tabernacle of your Molech, and chewing your images, the star of your God, which ye made to yourselves. Which is not talking about the so-called seal of David, or the seal of David. Or people call it the Star of David. That's not what it's talking about. There's no scripture that says that this star, Molech or Remphan, has 6 edges, okay, or like a hexagram. All right, but that's for another time. So let's go to Isaiah. So just to show you that the Most High was caring about judgment going forth. So this is another scripture in regards to that. This is Isaiah 1:11. To what purpose is the multitude of your sacrifices unto me, saith the Most High? I am full of the burnt offerings of rams and the fat of fed beasts, and I delight not in the blood of bullocks or of lambs or of he goats. Okay, so this has nothing to do with, again, we going back to Leviticus the 11th chapter, because the person was saying that that we're not supposed to be eating the sacrifice or whatever, but Leviticus 11 has nothing to do with sacrifice. It's talking about eating in general. If you're hungry and you want a lamb, if it's clean, so on and so forth, just like the Passover, okay? And then can you go in the Lamsa Bible and prove that we're not to keep the Passover? So, like, I mean, this is just, I shouldn't even really be doing this video because it's common sense. Okay, but I just want to edify brothers and sisters if they come across madness like this. Alright, so, and like I said, the first video I showed the eating of meat. I showed the eating of herbs. Okay, brought out Romans the 14th chapter. Okay, so, alright, so the Most High was full on offerings. Okay, and like I said, he wants us to do his will more so than sacrifice. Okay, so this is 1 Samuel 15 and 22. Okay, it says, and Samuel said, hath the Most High as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as in obeying the voice of the Most High? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to hearken than the fat of rams. Okay, so to obey the Most High, so going back to Jeremiah the 7th chapter. Okay, so again, that's what the Most High expects from us. Okay, but we still sacrifice. He still told us to sacrifice, and we're going to sacrifice. But again, we ain't going to really be sinning. Alright, so this is Psalms 40 and 6. Alright, so it says, sacrifice and offering thou didst not desire, mine ears has thou opened, burnt offering and sin offering hast thou not required. Okay, so, I mean, again. Okay, I'll drop to verse 8. I delight to do thy will, O my power. Yea, thy law is within my heart. Okay, so that's what's important. So this is Psalms 51 and 16. And it says, for thou desirest not sacrifice, else would I give it. Thou delightest not in burnt offering. The sacrifices of the Most High are a broken spirit, a broken and a contrite heart, O Most High, thou wilt not despise. So a broken and a contrite heart, basically changing yourself. Okay. Being humble, that's what it could represent. Alright, so that's what the Most High is like, even like the scriptures say, we're supposed to be a living sacrifice. I believe that's in Romans. Let me see. Yeah, verse 1. This is the book of Romans chapter 12, verse 1. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of the Most High, that ye present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto the Most High. Okay, which is your reasonable service. Okay, so more so, because especially now, we're not sacrificing now. Okay, because Yahushua was the ultimate sacrifice. Alright, so how else do we sacrifice? By right here, holy and acceptable. Okay, so doing what the Most High says, you know. Okay, so matter of fact, let me show this before I'm almost forget. So this is from the Travels of Lodovico de Vartema. Alright, so the Travels, matter of fact, where the... Alright, I almost lost. But here we go. So this page 22, it says, the chapter concerning a mountain inhabited by Jews. It says, at the end of 8 days we found a mountain which appeared to be 10 or 12 miles in circumference, in which mountain there dwell 4,000 or 5,000 Jews, who go naked and are in height 5 or 6 spans, and have a feminine voice, and are more black than any other color. So again, cutting, showing that the Jews, we're the real Jews. Okay, it says they lived entirely upon the flesh of sheep and eat nothing else. Okay, they are circumcised and confess that they are Jews. Okay, so it says they live entirely upon the flesh of sheep. Okay, so and they're black and colored, or Negroes. All right, so I mean we see that, and we see that them eating meat. Okay, so this is obviously predating the King James 1611. So eating meat all the way over here, and the 1500s. Okay, so yeah, I mean that's a cut, and everything else I brought out for understanding. All right, so that's been the lesson. If brothers and sisters have any questions or comments, obviously you can leave them. All right, so until the next lesson, shalom.